to Founderology Built to Break 3 podcast. And today, our amazing founder traded her career from the pharmacy industry to the restaurant business twice. Once with her husband Chad and built a 5-location wine bar concept, then sold it with an audacious idea. And her and Chad started on their journey to serve damn good biscuits. Just a few years later, Biscuit Belly is a 14-unit, $23 million brunch franchisee going across 5 states, a top 100 mover and shaker, and Lauren is still co-founding and driving the franchise growth. So please join me in welcoming Lauren Coulter, the founder and CEO of Biscuit Belly. Lauren, welcome to Founderology.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited to talk to you about this, Lauren. You know, I was on your website, and I just started getting hungrier and hungrier as I looked at every biscuit, every tater tot, and then of course breakfast cocktails. I mean, who doesn't love a good breakfast cocktail?
Lots of good stuff. And I mean, it's an easy sell from a consumer perspective. I don't have to twist people's arms at all. So it's fun.
That is a great position to be in. And real quick, one for the people that are not familiar with Damn Good Biscuits and and Biscuit Belly, could you maybe give them just a little bit of an overview of your amazing concept?
We serve huge biscuits, so are kind of flavor filled, full of lots of good eats, whole food. Think about your Southern biscuit, but it being filled with bold flavors, fried chicken, pimento, house-made jams, all sorts of things. So lots of goodness in between our biscuits, but really the biscuits are the shining star.
Oh my gosh, right. And of course, a side of tater tots for any biscuit occasion, right? So Lauren, I kind of mentioned in the intro, you and Chad are both pharmacists, right? And you're doing extraordinarily well. And then you get the idea, we should go into restaurant business. So can you maybe, and then you not only do it once, you do it twice, and you're like, and then we're going to franchise. So can you kind of walk us through how you both got to those decisions?
Yes. I met Chad in pharmacy school, and one of the first things, as you're getting to know someone, I asked him, what do you want to do? Because there's all different areas of pharmacy that you can go into. And he said, I think I want to own my own business someday. So obviously I assumed that meant he wanted to own a pharmacy someday. I think a lot of people probably are aware of the challenges that are in the pharmacy world, just fewer dollars from a reimbursement perspective, from a people perspective, fewer hours for help. And my husband actually took a role teaching. And that allowed him, with all due respect, teachers work very hard. He has the capacity to do like 3 full-time jobs in a normal person's job. And so at that time, he just said, hey, we should, start looking into opening some things, our own business. And we visited multiple franchisors. We just thought franchising would be a smart way to get started, to get into this world and learn, not having to build something new ourselves. And so we actually opened this place called Uptown Art, which was a paint and drink place. And it was the first one in Louisville. Louisville's super bourbon focused, but didn't really have, I should say it's bourbon focused. We served wines that people could drink while they're, painting, and they weren't really good wines, but, it was just an experience, right? And I think that taught us the importance and the value that people put on an experiential endeavor. And so it did well, but we grew that. We had 2 locations, one in Louisville, one across the river in Indiana. And after about 2.5 years, we were like, there's only so many fleur-de-lis that these people can paint. So we recognized it. Probably a fad. We should exit. And so we sold it and then used that kind of bundle of cash to open our first restaurant. Now, I would love to tell you that we knew what we were doing at that point, but we did not. It was truly just something that was fun. Chad met a chef, Tavis Rockwell, and just really connected with him, hired him, had a great team. Our store was like 2,000 square feet, maybe smaller. The kitchen was maybe like 180 square feet, 200. I mean, it's tiny, and the things
Right.
they produce from that kitchen. And we really focused on wine because, like I said, Louisville's very bourbon, had some
Right.
beer, but didn't really have a good place that you could go and just have a glass of wine. So we would have these really high dollar, 60 or 70 wines by the glass in the containers that kept them good. And it did well. Now, it was not, I would love to sit here and tell you everything was like very thoughtful and, intentional. It was not. I mean, I made our first website on Squarespace. It was like,
Right.
okay, these colors are pretty. That looks good. Okay. Like there was no intentionality around any of the branding. And so, but it was step one, right? And it did really well. Uh, Grew that to a second location here in Louisville, opened up in Indianapolis, and opened up in Cincinnati. And we were on our way to our fifth location, opening that, when he had been pestering me, like, hey, we should do this biscuit thing. And I thought, you're nuts. We're from Georgia. We love biscuits. These Louisville people are not going to. They're a little more posh than we are. And then we started seeing like Biscuit Love in Nashville and Pine State Biscuits in Oregon. We were actually in Oregon and came across a Pine State Biscuits, and he was like, we're going, we're going to eat this and you're going to like it. And as usual, he's just poking the bear till he
Right.
gets what he wants. And so I was like, fine, let's do this. And so we opened up Biscuit Belly. That one, I will say, it was probably 9 to 12 months of intentionality around the branding, the colors. What
Yeah.
do we want these dishes to be like? We would have friends over with our chef, and he would just make things, and we would taste things and rate them. And we probably had 80 to 90 names over the course of this year that we had thought through. Really worked with a creative agency to help get the ideas that were like in his head on paper. And so just a totally unique approach for us, much more intentional, had a lot of foresight, planning, much more planning oriented. And it was at that point, like, we did this very stepwise. He went part-time at his role, then stepped back entirely, and then I went part-time at my role. And it wasn't until we got into Biscuit Belly, and our first one opened May of 2019, second one opened December of 2019. So at the time we had 5 of these full service nighttime concepts and 2 breakfast concepts.
Right.
It was kind of at this breaking point, right? Of
Right.
like, time, energy is our most valued resource in this moment.
Right.
We are failing. Like, what can we do? And so in December of 2020, 2 things happened. I put in my notice for my pharmacy job for March of 2020. So I'm sorry, December of 2019. Yes. Put in my notice for March of 2020. We made the strategic decision to focus down on Biscuit Belly, and we put LouVino up for sale. And then what happened after that. And so we had an offer given to us for LouVino like March 14th of 2020, something like that.
Whiz.
And then, the world shut down. And so at the same time, I stepped away from my job, and that was a great pharmacy job, dependable and cool. And we definitely had this, oh my God, what the heck are we doing moment?
Right.
And, terror with excitement and joy. I mean, all the things. You remember all the feelings.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I will say the good thing about it was, from a Biscuit Belly perspective, it really helped us and gave us the capacity to figure out to go. Like, until that point, we had never, people would call and be like, I want a place to go order. And we're like, sorry. Like, we're not even buying to go boxes. Like, joke's on you. And no, we had to figure that out, because when you take a biscuit and you stuff it with fried chicken and you put gravy all on the top of it, and then you send it out with a DoorDash driver who might be dropping off two other things. Then the guest gets it and they're like, what is this sludge? Totally different, right?
Right.
So a lot of learnings took
Right.
place
So,
during
Lauren,
that time.
yeah, I want to take a couple of steps on that too, because part of what we talk about is where founders get stuck, what we call they get stuck in the suck of the stuck zone, right? Because
Yep.
you're too big to be small and you're too small
Too
to be
small.
big. And
Oh
so
yeah.
when you're talking about, you and Chad, the most valuable resource you have 5 locations running at night, 2 locations running in the morning, right? So you're basically 24 hours, right? And you're going time and money. And I find it, so one, there is a classic illustration of the stuck zone. Do we just keep grinding it out to get to a different point, or do we make a strategic decision? And I love, so that's one area, right? I think the other thing that I love is obviously the entrepreneurial spirit is alive, and it sounds like you and Chad have your yin and yang on this too, right? And when you're thinking about that too, it's like, okay, look, we did LouVino this way, but when it comes to Biscuit Belly, we're going to be intentional. We're going to write a plan. I always think like, that's one of the things that I advocate strongly for, because I'm like, I'd rather have you figure that out with a pen and a paper than figure it out
Mm-hmm.
with your bank account at a later date,
Yes.
right? And so
100%.
again, you prevented getting stuck by having the pen and the paper conversation,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think for the listeners, you and Chad were making some very critical decisions, not knowing that, yeah, a global pandemic is coming, right? But as you're making them because you're seeing like, but I think I just want to ask a question about making those decisions. I always think with founders, when they have to make a decision, that concepts sometimes are like, I've got to let this go because I have to believe in this. And how did you two go? You have a successful you got a successful Louisville, right? And you're going to let it go because you really believe in this 5 and 2, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what was the driver at that moment to go, we are going in, we're going all in on Biscuit Belly?
A couple of things really. Our training process for 60 or 70 wines was very robust. So when you think about team members, and a lot of people don't go into it thinking about the people that they're going to have to hire when they actually open and what people are capable of. Now, can anyone ultimately get to the learning spot of being a connoisseur of these 70 wines? Of course, but it takes time. And so we just really thought a lot about people and what does our tiny little team for that concept have the capacity to do and do well. Like they can do more. At some point, there are diminishing returns, right? And so, what can they do well? And focused on that. Um, I think too, the cost, what it took for us to open a LouVino with its beautiful, booths and lovely chandeliers and these higher cost wines, like the capital, the investment piece was significantly higher than a Biscuit Belly
Right.
was, which was, we could turn and burn an old Zoe's and,
Right.
flip it for nothing, next to
Right.
nothing. So
Right.
all of those pieces were really important. I will say a Kathleen could have told us all of that going into LouVino. And there's definitely that piece of like, we got to figure this out for ourselves, And so that was just a big learning that we had was every time we open, we're signing a lease, putting our mortgage on the line, our home, our family home. And I think there's pieces of like, we had a baby in 2015. Like some of that helps shape
Right.
the decision making that you have, right?
Right.
And how risky. Now, my husband has no problem with risk. I am so risk averse. So we are a
I
good,
do love that. The yin
yeah,
and
like
the yang of
yin
it.
and yang. Yeah.
Well, and I think that that's the important balance of it too, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes you see founders that are like, they are going for it. And then you'll say, well, let's just look at the financials for a moment. And they're like, what? We don't need to, you know. So I love that. I love that balance, you know, that the yin and the yang of it, because it allows you to still innovate like that. To me, that's that positive tension that forces innovation to occur, right? So you decide, you all just, so now you go, okay, we're going all in on Biscuit Belly, and you've got it planned, you've got it going, it opens up, it's successful. And then you do hit COVID, which I do find fascinating, because I think COVID was one of those moments where either you're gonna innovate like anybody's business, or you're gonna just kind of try to work it out. And I think
Yep.
the companies that kind of got in there, stayed true to their purpose, but then
Yep.
innovated, they did extraordinarily well. What was
Yeah.
your experience during that time?
We used that time really. I mentioned the innovation on the to go side,
Right.
which has obviously paid dividends because we're 6, 7 years out, and to go is still 28% of our business. I mean, it
It's
did
amazing.
not go away.
Right.
And there's just a consumer that loves to eat at home, and they love to get everything brought to them. I have friends like this. I have friends that have dinner DoorDash to them every single night, and not only dinner, but then they pay for it to go through McDonald's and get them a McDonald's Diet Coke every night. Like that that lifestyle is foreign to me, but those guests exist. So I think that piece was important. That was also from a time perspective. We had the capacity to then figure out what, marketing for a franchise as being a franchisor is totally different from marketing for a consumer. And that's what people don't understand, how much time and energy and capital goes into. You can't just tomorrow be like, I'm going to start franchising. Like there's so
Right.
many legal obligations and hoops you have to go through, and after you're open, audits, financial audits that you have to do. And so a lot of challenges, and then that's before you're even go through the process of finding a potential franchise partner.
Right. Right.
So that, I will say, we spent March, April, May, really just hunkered down in the trenches, making sure our team was okay. I mean, I had team members show up at my house sobbing, chefs that are like, I didn't become a chef to put things in boxes. I did it so I could see people's faces, and dealing with the mixed emotions there, to then March, April, May, we opened back up in May, June, just like taking that breath. Then July, August, September, October, we were really in the weeds of figuring out franchising. And so dealing with the marketing piece, dealing with the lawyer, the legal piece, all of that. And, I'm glad that we did it. We learned a lot. And lucky for us, some of the franchise partners that we initially found are collaborative, engaging humans. And they are like, they knew what they were getting into. They're like, we want to be a part of something small so that we can help build it. And then there were some franchise partners that we did not pick very well, like that just weren't great for our brand.
Right.
And we have learned so much on that space. I think one thing I also learned about myself that my mama told me forever is how much of a control freak I am. And nothing brings out the control freak in you quite like franchising. So,
So true. So true.
yeah.
So Lauren, what did make you so we're going to talk about that in a second, because I think that that's one of the for founder led businesses, that is, that's a moment, right? But what led you to make the decision to say we are going to franchise this? What, because to your point, it's not a path for everybody. It's not like, to your point, you can't say, well, tomorrow we're franchising and let's just put a sign in. It is a process, right? For all the right reasons and everything else. But what was your ultimate driver of that decision?
Well, I think we went at it as a means for growth that was obviously less capital invasive on our side. What's the right language? Like, we could grow a bit quicker without it costing us as much. Having said that, I bet we've spent as much on franchising as we have just could have generated opening restaurants. Do you know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
I, at the time, early on, it can really make sense. And then you get into it and you're like, maybe
You
I
know,
shouldn't have it. I do think there is for sure a place for it. And I think it's lovely and has created significant life and wealth and generational wealth for a lot of people out there, right? Getting into franchise organizations. But for people that want to grow their business, I think having the control and oversight is more important than growing quickly, growing your store count.
right, right. Yeah,
And
they have this
again,
saying,
you told me this. Yeah.
it's so funny. They have a saying, you grow for show, you make profit for dough, right? And
Yes.
that, but I'm kind of with you, Lauren, because I do think that understanding what the strategy of why you want to do your own stores or why you want to do franchising. I think having that clarity, because there's pros and cons to both, right?
Yep.
But also to your point, kind of having that foresight of saying, okay, here's all the good things that could happen. Here's also some of the challenges that they both have challenges. There's no doubt about it. But I do think that some founders are wired to franchise because it's just their wire, and some are like, no, you know what, this is the way we're going to go, and we're going to grow, and it'll be steady, it will be this, it will, it will not that it won't be without. But I always find that in the early stages of it, but the best thing about it is nobody has to get stuck in one lane at any point.
Yeah.
Somebody could
Exactly.
say, I'm going to switch gears. So that's the other thing I
Exactly.
always tell people is don't try to lock in like with cement. Be
Yep.
like Jello,
Yes.
have wiggle room there.
Wiggle room is the key. And, even now, we're still entertaining potential franchise partners. We're
Right.
still signing franchise deals. We aren't stopping that, but we have learned so freaking much that makes us not only a better franchisor, but more picky, or just not even picky. Like, you can have the best relationship and the best experience
Yeah.
with someone and them not be the best fit for your concept. And so I think learning what we need to have to have, and then also what we cannot have is so useful, right? And you think you go into this with this like, no, it won't be, we'll be different. Our franchisees will be different. They won't. Like, everyone is who they are. Like, it's just so comical. And then you go to franchise conferences and you hear these, or you see on LinkedIn like 30 unit deal signed and this and that, and you're like, you feel so diminished and so small because you're like, what's wrong with me? I mean, franchising just feels like another outfit that I'm putting on.
Right.
And it's like, what's wrong with my outfit? Why didn't I look good today?
Right.
And it's so challenging. I've met some of the most beautiful people through it too,
Right.
So
Right.
such a like mixed bag of emotions.
Lauren, what would you suggest to a founder though, who's kind of right there where you are, right? And they're like, look, we have successful concepts, we've got great AUVs, we have our systems, should we franchise, should we not franchise? What advice would you give that founder? What would you tell them that they should go kind of do?
I would really challenge them to have a team member who they work with, almost like give them a piece of the pie and tell them they can run that business. And just with you still at the helm, tell them they can run the business as they see fit, but given these confines. And they will learn really quickly the things that people, it is like having a child. Like, you say, here's our awesome menu, just follow the recipe. And it's like, I want to just maybe dabble over here, or I want to try this thing over here, or no, those plates are too expensive and we found some cheaper ones, and so we're just going to use those. Like, every element that can be pushed just a hair
Yeah.
is going to be pushed, and see if you can handle it first.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say, and people told me this, and I did not believe them, is the ownership of your brand is who you are. And when you let that go, the perk to franchising is they can have a store 4 hours away and be involved in the community in ways that you cannot if you
Right.
did not grow up and live
100%.
there. So for that reason, like that was more of my why at the beginning. Having said that, because they know their people and they know their things, you do not have that oversight of that experience. So you want to nail the experience and be there, be in it with them as close as possible, and then continue to grow. And I would say hire people like the people that we had when we first opened. A lot of them aren't with us because the people that got us to store like 3 or 4, it's totally getting us different,
Right.
getting us to store
Right.
15. And
Yeah.
now, guess what? We had a team meeting yesterday. We've hired a couple new bodies. These people are getting us to store 50,
Right.
and they're totally different.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
I was sitting in a meeting yesterday and I was like, I can't imagine what those initial folks would be saying right now or dealing with. Like it would
Right.
blow their minds because it's just a different world and
It
a
is.
different experiences, right?
Right. Growth
So,
really does. There's people that, growth is not for everyone too, right? And
yeah,
but growth, we always say that, if you're gonna, like, when you're growing, make the hire that's been there, done that, or get the advisor that's been there, done that.
yep,
Because bringing in everyone who's at equal doesn't give you, I
no,
can't see the path if I've never been on the path.
a
So,
hundred
and
percent.
that's one
And
of
you
the
know what?
biggest things we talk about.
And the biggest challenge to founders is it costs a lot. Like we're in Louisville, Kentucky, in the backyard of KFC and Texas Roadhouse, like the golden child from a team member guest experience perspective. I want those people. Oh crap, I can't afford those people. Like what do we do? And so but I would say, I mean I hate to say it, but like one of those people actually adds the value of 3 or 4 or 5 of like your current level team. So you have to not think of it. We had to stop thinking about it from a dollars and cents perspective and really
Yep.
focus on value add perspective. Otherwise, you'll drive yourself crazy.
Oh my gosh. I just hope everyone just hears that, because that's one of the tenets I talk about all the time, because I always hear
Yep.
we can't afford it. I'm like, but if I took your time and this person's
Yes.
time and all these people's times and how much time it's taking for everyone's learning curve, and I put all
Yes.
that into a bucket, and then I brought somebody in who could, and the most important thing about bringing that person in, which I always hear about too, is they're so expensive, they better come in and do something immediately. I'm like, no, they need to come in and be culturally aligned with you and really understand you, because the last thing you need them to do is come in and rewire you. So I always suggest to people, look, the cultural fit, they have the competency and the skill set. That is not the issue. The issue is, will they culturally align with you as a founder? Because the founder needs someone, to your point, Lauren, to be value add in that, not
Yes.
not point around,
Yep.
not helpful. Yeah,
And to come
oh my
in
gosh.
and listen to what
Yes.
has been done, because that will win over the current team members quicker than
Yes.
anything. Like finding the value in the work that's been done and
Yes.
elevating it, leveling it up. I mean, that's the people who have stuck here and who have won. They've been their approach. It's
Gosh.
very
I literally hope
intimate.
everyone slows this podcast down and listens to that like 15 times, because
They have to go
it's
talk so fast sometimes too.
no, but it's so powerful, because that's another
Yeah.
point of getting stuck. Like, we're doing everything our own. We're doing everything our own. We can't afford somebody, so we'll just keep doing everything our own. It's just like, oh my gosh, you could get out of that one. So, Lauren, I definitely feel like you and I could talk for hours about things too, by the way. But I did have a couple other questions for you. So, let's go back to franchising and, and being a control fanatic, right? Because I'm in the same school of you on that as a control fanatic. But how have you been able to reconcile, you are franchising, you are growing, you're in 5 states right now. So it's the expanse is getting bigger. How do
Mm-hmm.
you reconcile that? I always ask founders this, like, how do you reconcile that control piece with sometimes the reality piece?
I've, in full candor, I mean, I've struggled with that. The reality of an experience and at even at our stores that we're not in every moment. When you're in the city that you have restaurants in or you have your concept in, that experience is probably going to be a little different than, the folks in Norfolk. Now, I can talk about it all day, but I think there is something so important about being present in those spaces. And to your point of hiding, like we all talk about hiring a person or a team member or getting a franchise partner that aligns with you culturally. That has to be stapled on my face. Like, how many times have we hired a GM, saw in the training process challenges, and not step back? And so most recently, this is my favorite thing too about growth, is now our team, there's such a level of trust that our team recently had an MIT coming through manager training. And about day 4, one of our MIT leaders is like, this ain't it, girl. Like, this is not it. And
Yeah.
I trust her so much. I'm like, give me the lowdown. We have a hard conversation with this person. And training and, those initial steps in franchising is like dating. And if you see the red flag, get rid of it early. Like, yeah, we're opening a restaurant in Fayetteville, North Carolina on August 4th. That restaurant's going to sit empty for 3 weeks because everything's going to be done because we had this MIT and then we had to go find a new MIT. And so, but the challenges, if you do not knock that out before the person enters their building, they will be a culture crush. They will be a culture cancer. And it is unlike anything. Like, you're behind at that point. You can't.
Right. And everyone's
And
spending so much time talking about this person too. I'm like, oh my
yeah,
gosh, could we just, yeah,
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 yeah. The 80, like, it's the old adage, the 80, if it's 20% of your thing is sucking up 80% of your time, you got to unload that. And
right.
a lot of time will be a person. You
Yeah.
got to unload it.
No, and I think it comes back to, really protect, really honoring and respecting your brand. And,
Yeah,
and it doesn't mean that they're a bad person, by the way. It just means that they're
correct.
not the right fit. And I think that's where people get, I think people get a little bit off track because they're like, well, are you saying, and no, they're just not the right fit. Just like with franchisees, it doesn't mean they're a bad person, but also, my gosh, life is short. We want people to be happy. So if it's not working here, let's put you on a path where it could work somewhere else for you to be happy. And I think that's I love your mentality around that. I was also curious, we talked about you and Chad being the yin and the yang. So how do you two kind of run the organization? Like, where are your lines, and
Oh,
where do your lines blur?
we for sure make each other a little bit crazy. Having said that, we have very clear lanes. People know the things they come to me for, and they know the things they go to him for. Half of what I am actually trying to do is, especially like a founder, and specifically, Chad is the visionary of our scenario. They kind of want to have their hands in a little of everything. They have a need of awareness that is so robust. And I think if you're listening to this and you were thinking, yeah, I work with a visionary, and sometimes they're just in the weeds on things they shouldn't be. It's because they have a need of awareness, a need of awareness. And that is the nicest way that you can say, why are you all up in my stuff? And so once we learned how to give Chad, how to fulfill that need of awareness, it really helped because then he's like, okay, okay. And, we're making those little trust deposits into his bank account and he's stepping back. Um,
Right.
but even so, I mean, he still sits in a lot of seats that we don't have the capacity right now to fill for, and that we just haven't prioritized at this moment. Real estate, like, he is the founder. He wants to see now every location. Like, he wants to spend time around the area of each location that we are
Right.
looking at.
Right.
He's good with interiors. He's got a real like design flair, really, really good. We hosted our team last night at our house, and we've been there for 10 years. And at your house, it's like, I'll get to it. I'll get to it. I
Right.
think after like 9.5 years, we finally feel like this house is our home. It's super cozy. And
Right.
everyone's like, this is so cute. Lauren, where'd you do this? I'm like, I don't do any of it. He's the vision.
Right.
And so he still wants to be involved in that like look and style. But it's taken a little time to figure out what are the things that you have to be involved in? What are the things that you need to know about? And then what are the things that you just have like a sense of awareness around, that you need a sense of awareness around? And even just kind of having that common language so that he can come to us, and instead of saying, nobody told me about this video that we're doing this morning, he can say, I really have a need of awareness around this LTO because I want to make sure da 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 da. And we're like, got it. We
Got
can make
it.
that for you.
Yeah. That is good. So he has that part of it. And then where's your role in this?
My role is more integrator. So we run on EOS.
Yep.
So, he's
Yep.
visionary, and I'm your classic integrator. Technically, our executive team reports to me in terms of like, here is where, okay, when rubber meets the road, we have to do, these 10 things to make sure
Yeah.
our teams are good. And what do we need to do? It is 90% about what can I get out of your way? What do you need from me to allow you to move more efficiently, move quicker? How do we grow? And so I really meet with those folks once a week, along with them, like our whole team meets once a week. And we're just now, we've been doing Biscuit Belly for 7 years. I mean, we are just now have hired kind of this, like, I'm calling it like a middle layer, of where like there's an executive team and there's GMs, and now we have this kind of mid layer. And so really right now, I mean, figuring out what are our cadences going to be, like how do we communicate effectively to make sure I'm used to being like, hey girl, hey Maya, I'm heading out to your store, hey
Right.
Grace, I'm stopping in. Also, my bestie is coming by, and with where we're going, I would love to still be able to be like that with, 50 G's.
Right.
But the reality is, Jimmy's not going to know me
Right.
that
Right.
well.
Right.
And so figuring out some of those pieces is a lot of what I do.
That makes total sense. But I think, Lauren, that's part of growth, right? Like I always suggest that, when you're growing, you have to be able to scale your standards, right? You have to systematize it, but then you have to be able to scale it. And part of the standards are communication and, because you're bigger and words have weight at that point. So now were you giving me a suggestion? Were you giving me a direction, or am I in trouble, or was that for a coaching improvement? So but having that, I love need for awareness. Yeah, definitely that is a great one. But also just the whole organization becoming aware that, look, we have to operate differently because we're getting to a different stage. And and there's a joy in that, but there's also sometimes, where like things that we were just like, oh, we could do, now we
Oh,
just keep learning languages as we grow.
yes. And I will say, kind of, you said there's joy in it. There's also mourning in it that
Yes.
I did not fully understand. Like mourning the fact that we can make a change on a POS on a dime. Like you can't quite do that. And as a founder, my husband really actually has a hard time with this. It's like he uses the word just. I'm like, stop using the word just. He says, all you have to do is just blah, blah, blah. Just change it and send out a message. And I'm like, honey, half these people are operating a crazy store. They are not looking at their computers. They're going to, you have to mourn some of those pieces as well, and you can
Right.
be growth for growth, and be also mourning the simplicity that
It
you
is,
are
well, because the company
moving.
is growing and the founder is, that's the founder can get stuck too, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so it's a very elastic process because
Yes.
both are growing together. The baby and the parent are growing together now,
Yep.
and all the roles are changing as we go. Um, I just really want to say I appreciate your insights and your just directness about this, because these are the kind of conversations that people are having, and they're wondering, am I the only person having this conversation? And I think today you have definitely shown that these conversations are not isolated by any stretch of the imagination. So, Lauren, if there was one decision that you're like, I'm so glad we made this decision because it did this, and then one decision you made where it was like, I wish I took 10 more seconds before I made that decision, what would those two decisions look like?
The one that I know I'm glad we did it is easy. Um, our first A team player was a woman named Lisa Dwelly that we didn't go out, we had no, job description or plan to hire a woman in training. She had been at Texas Roadhouse. She had been the VP of training at Torchy's. They were acquired by Venture, some VC, and let go of their entire training team. And she happened to live in my backyard. And we had a connection. Someone said, "Hey, I met this woman. You should probably go to breakfast with her." And Chad actually met up with her. And I don't know, 8 minutes into their breakfast, he is blowing up my phone. "You need to come here. You need to come here. You got to meet
Oh
this
my
woman."
gosh, that's so great.
And I think that she is when I think about the best thing that we've ever done for this company, from a pivotal mindset change perspective, it was hiring her,
That's
because then I
great.
better understood the value that we were talking about earlier, and the value
Right.
that she could bring to this organization, and what it could do to all of our team's brains of like opening up, seeing a vision for. I think she helped us see the path, right? My husband sees this vision of these, a bajillion stores, but sometimes the pathway to get there is very blurry to people who haven't walked it before. And so she really helped us in that.
I love
The
that.
thing,
I love that. One hire makes a big
yeah,
difference. Right.
yeah. And then now we're like, that's all we're doing. Like
Yes.
what we're finding those people.
Yeah.
Then there have been so many things I look back and I'm like, why did we do that? I mean, it's also people. I mean, why did
Right.
we hire some of the people that we hired? We learned the hard way that for a small brand, we needed people who were into and had been a part of building something.
Ah,
We
oh,
hired two
excellent.
gentlemen back to back who, like, one came from Panera and one came from Cracker Barrel, and had been in director of operations roles. And we thought, oh, they've been at these big brands, but we did not learn to ask the question, did you help build that? And so that was a significant change. So now, we're very forthcoming when people are interviewing with us. It is, what things have you built?
Yeah.
How do you give us examples of, not just like, I organized something that someone else built around me.
Right. Right.
How did you start from nothing and create something that added
Oh, I
value?
love that so much. Okay, another mic drop moment there. All right. So, two final questions, Lauren. This has been phenomenal. One is, if there's one piece of advice you give to a founder that's listening right now, what would be the piece of advice you'd give them? And then, if someone were to roll up on one of your biscuit bellies, and I cannot wait to do that, what would be the one thing that they have to try?
Okay, I have a lot of answers. Okay,
All
so
right.
the first thing, advice I'd give a founder is easily just not to feel like you're alone. There are, and I can't tell you how many podcasts or, video or TV things I do where people are like, this is an overnight sensation. And I'm like, overnight my butt. Like, I've been working on this, and, we've been doing this for 7 years, and I feel like are just now really kind of seeing some of the fruits of our labor come to fruition. it takes time. You are not alone. This is a marathon. It is a marathon
I
and
love
marathon.
that.
It's a triathlon. It is absolutely not a sprint.
Yes,
Do not
I love
feel
that. I love that.
alone. And I think, we were talking about the founders conference, really seeking out organizations or a conference or two that are intentionally for new startup folks. You can go to these things and see like, Dave's Hot Chicken or Sweet Green, like these things that are just huge. And, they might have some good little sayings here or there, but they don't give you information that really can apply to me, a little girl that's starting something. So the good thing about these smaller programs is that you leave with actionable insights and incredible takeaways. So
I just
that's
want
my
to say
plug.
thank you to that, because that is
Yeah.
that's our Founderology Growth Summit, that we're having August 2nd through the 4th in Chicago, 2027. And it really is designed. It's 100 to 125 founders only to come together to talk about real founders,
Yeah.
with real solutions, with real experiences, where
Yep.
you could talk to 100 founders in a large group format and say, what POS system did you really
Mm-hmm.
like?
Mm-hmm.
What learning management? What did you do
Mm-hmm.
with your third party delivery group? And
Yep.
you're not getting a theory on that. You're getting,
Actual.
well-earned experience sharing it with the team. So, time is precious, as you said, but
Yep.
going where you get extraordinary value, I think is,
Yep.
whether it's, and even like this podcast, Lauren, people are going to get so much from this. It's
Oh.
going to be
Well,
amazing.
and I think too, just knowing, and this was really hard for me because I always feel like I'm building a system thinking about 100 units instead of 3, but really, like, what do you need to do to get to 30, not 100? And I think, there are a million. My LinkedIn has 100 salespeople a day, and I get 90 sales calls a day from people who are trying to sell you something that is great, and something that could for sure improve your business. But if it is not something that anyone on your team has the capacity to dig into and really take actionable insights from, it's not worth it. Like, we focused hard on guest experience, guest, and team. That's it.
I love
If
it.
it is not 100%, how do I hear from the guest? How do I make the guest experience better? You don't need it. Same for your team. So those would be like my two little
Love that.
things of
That is great.
wisdom.
Guest
Yeah.
and team filter. I love that.
Mhm.
All right. So
Yeah.
Lauren, what is the one
Okay.
product? I know you've been like you're there. I have mine, but
It's
what's yours?
really hard for me. So if I'm in my 40s now, and I'm in my spicy. I like spicy foods now. I used to not. So I am a fire in your belly girl. I get a little heat in it. It is so good. But then when I'm trying to be good, I'm trying to be healthy, we just started a wrap, like a BLT wrap.
Uh,
So good.
oh my gosh.
So good.
All right.
Yeah.
Lauren, let me just say this. I know that people are going to take this information today. It has been amazing to have this conversation with you. I mean, this is what we aspire to do with the Founderology podcast, is to bring real founders to talk about the real issues, the real decisions,
Yeah.
the real challenges of sometimes being stuck, but the real
Yeah.
opportunities of what it takes to grow. And today,
Yeah.
this has been an 11 on a 10, right? So
Oh,
thank you so much for your time and your insights, and really, the lessons learned, the insights gained, and the experiences that you shared. It's been phenomenal. So thank you so much.
you.
And if people wanted to learn more about Biscuit Belly and you, where would they go to find information out?
Well, biscuitbelly.com is our website. Simple. Our Instagram is stunning, Biscuit Belly Biscuits. I do a lot on my Instagram, kind of behind the scenes of like, hey, this combination of I'm trying to be a good mom and I'm trying to be a good team member and I'm trying to be a good leader, and it's more of a funny failures backside of the biscuits. So I'm at Lauren Makes Biscuits on Instagram as well.
Ooh, Lauren Makes Biscuits at Instagram as well. All right. Thank you, Lauren. And for all of our listeners today, wow, go back, listen to this time and time again. And when you're having a day and you're thinking about, can I get out of the stuck zone? pick back this podcast back up and listen to it. And
Yes,
until the
and
next
DM
time,
me because I feel you. I will say, you got this. You can do it.
take the offer from Lauren, DM Lauren. And again, thank you, Lauren, and thank you everyone who's tuned in today. And for everybody out there that's building that next great brand, keep building it. Know you're not alone, and know you can always tune in to Founderology Built to Breakthrough podcast for not only your lessons and your experiences, but your inspirations to continue in the journey. Thank you all so much, and have a great day.